Hey everyone, John here, and Mario Tennis Fever is looking absolutely awesome. I'm a guy who spent over 200 hours in Aces, and so this might be my most anticipated game right now. I love everything about what they're showing. The core mechanics are pretty unique and a nice evolution from Aces. The menus don't suck anymore. That's always cool. Look at this. This is a nice looking functional menu. And it's got a whole bunch of modes, like a far more ambitious story mode, a mode where you pick up rackets on the fly and change how you're playing during the game itself, and far, far more. I am a very eager man to play this, but I'm going to reserve the gameplay impressions until the game's actually out. For now, I want to focus on the visuals. Is this truly a generational jump over Aces? But before we get really detailed on comparing every single character in the game, here is how the game itself looks when you're playing tennis. And side by side with Aces, this is a far more colorful and saturated game. And if you were to zoom in on Bowser here, you can see so many differences in model quality. For instance, in Aces, his hair is just kind of one matted structure, whereas in Fever, they're now detailed looking strands. There's a lot of improvements to Bowser himself, and you're going to see that a lot closer very soon. But let's look at the stadium too, and one thing that's really cool here is the grass texture. Aces pretty much has this court too. It's a little bit different, but mostly the same. And it's really cool seeing how they evolved how grass works. And there's a few shots in this trailer where they zoom in and you can see exactly how the grass effect is being rendered. And obviously you won't see it this close during actual gameplay, but when you're fully zoomed out, it's a really nice looking effect. And something else that struck me in Mario Tennis Fever is you can see the crowds at all times. Aces has crowds as well, but it usually hides them from you. You can see them when you're serving, and you can see them during the introduction sequences, but even then they're quite conservative about what they're actually showing. On these close-up shots of the crowds, they're in fairly high quality, but whenever there's a shot showing lots of different people in the crowd, you can see their resolution is drastically lower than anything else on screen, and their general quality just isn't that great. But you're not really seeing them during gameplay. You can see them when you're serving, and there's a few chances where you can nudge the camera up, but for the most part the crowds are just not shown on screen. Whereas in Fever, the crowds are always there. Not only are they much better quality and in higher volume and always present, but they animate too. They seem to all follow the ball back and forth as one big, quite creepy hive mind. I probably shouldn't have brought attention to that because now you can't unsee the hive mind of the crowd. Anyway, the official website for this game has every single character shown in their render. Although these aren't really renders, these are the in-game models just sort of posed to look like renders, which is really nice because in Mario Tennis Aces you've got renders from like the GameCube era through the Wii era through the Wii U era, so a very inconsistent array of renders, whereas now the character models look so good that you can just pose them and they look as good as any render would look. So that's really, really cool, but it also makes it very easy to compare these because these are the in-game quality models. Now in Mario Tennis Aces, when selecting your character, you can get a similar view, but it's quite flat looking and quite small. So we're going to be comparing these to the actual serving shots, which give you a much better look at the character. So let's begin with Mario. And as you'll see for a lot of human characters, the hair is far more detailed than the previous version. But also, so are the clothes as well. If you look very closely, you can see a lot of detail and stitching on all these clothes. And the eyes have had a huge overhaul as well. Wario's doing a very similar pose here, but the hair and the stitching on his hat is just a pretty huge jump. Same with Waluigi here. It's a very similar looking model they probably built upon the Aces ones, but just the stitching and the quality is a huge jump. But Peach actually looks drastically different. I think a lot of that comes down to the eyes and the more bold outlines around them. Same for Daisy as well. So even though the general structure is very similar, they've definitely changed the expressions a lot. And Rosalina's hair, I think, is a huge upgrade over Aces there, especially with how prominent it is. Toad just kind of looks rounder and clearer. There's not much you can do with Toad, but you can see there's some aliasing on Aces around the circle on his and Toadette's little mushroom spots, which doesn't exist in Fever, so that's neat. Bowser's had a massive overhaul though. Of course the hair, and the scales, and the shell, even the spikes in his wrists, everything's better. Bowser Jr. is not in his clown car anymore, which is a pretty drastic jump as well, and he's just generally rounder. Boo, that sure is Boo. It looks more like an actual CG render in that image, to be honest. They've mastered the circle in this game. And Yoshi, I think, looks a lot more like his Mario Wonder appearance, sort of a middle ground between the two. Donkey Kong, though, massive upgrade. This is the Bonanza version, and the fur is so much better than it was in Aces. Then we've got Spike, that sure is Spike, but again, look at the hair. Big upgrade over Aces. And then we have my boy Chain Chomp, who is much shinier and textured than he used to be. I'm fond of this guy. Koopa's also just a lot more round than he used to be, but the colours are quite different as well. That may come down to the lighting, but it's just quite a different looking guy. Whereas Blooper looks wetter and shinier. So if you ever wanted a wetter looking Blooper, here you go. And Diddy Kong, this is my favourite looking Diddy Kong ever. I'm still getting used to the split in the eyes, but I love everything else about him. Birdo, look at that. Look at the nose. You can see the hexagon-looking nose on Aces. That's a round nose in Fever. Shy Guy, look how round his mask is. That's so round. Also, his belt looks quite textured compared to Aces as well. P.T. Piranha, you kind of stare for a while looking for the differences. It's quite a stylized character. And same with Luma. They already looked perfect as they were. Just a little bit smoother, a little bit rounder than they used to be. And then we've got Boom Boom, who again, look at the angular mouth on Aces, where he's got a very round mouth on Fever. Otherwise very similar though. Pauline, it's all in the hair. Look at that hair. Drastically different hair. And the face also, from the lighting, looks quite different as well. Kamek, that sure is Kamek. They haven't added any reflections around his eyes, on his glasses even. That's a very similar looking character. Dry Bones, different colours. More grey bone looking colour this time. Much more textured than it used to be. And Piranha Plant, they've changed it from fire to just a regular one. But look at the pot. Look at the texturing on the pot. And then Dry Bowser, our last comparison. Very similar to Dry Bones, where you can see a much more bony looking colour and a lot more texture going on as well. So let's cycle back to Fire Piranha Plant a moment, because Mario Tennis Aces had alternate costumes for a lot of the characters. It was usually just giving them a hat, but with Mario and Luigi, and I think Wario and Waluigi, you could change their costumes back to their traditional ones. So instead of having, the tennis gear, they can wear their overalls. And Bowser had like this Jack Black looking flame shirt. That was kind of neat. But with Piranha Plant, it's very likely they're going to bring back the Fire one as an alt, because we saw Lumalee in the trailer, who has not been announced as a character. So either this will be a update DLC character, or it's just an alt for Luma, which is much more likely, given the expression is much more of Luma than Lumalee. Many of you may know this from the Mario movie, but Lumalee is a character from Galaxy. They sold you the 6-point mushrooms and also 1-up mushrooms. We also got a little bit of a look at the sound design, which sounds near identical to Mario Tennis Aces. Just the general hits are very similar. But you also hear the announcer at one point saying 15 love, which is identical to previous Mario Tennis games.
Tournament mode.
New to this, of course, though, is the Talking Flower, who's going to commentate. I imagine you can turn this guy off, much like you can turn the Toads off in Mario Tennis Aces. They don't talk, they're just through text, but you can turn them off. But one other thing I was definitely listening out for was the moving around sound effect. For those of you who have paid attention, the moving around sound effect in Mario Tennis Aces sounds an awful lot like the moving around sound effect in Mario 64. In fact, I think they are the exact same. And while the trailer, for the most part, masks the sound of footsteps, you can't really hear them. Right at the end, after the splash screen, there is one final clip where the music is muted. And take a listen. Yeah, they're doing the sound effect again. So, not only have I ruined it for you that the crowds move as one big hive mind, but also, it seems like the Mario 64 sound effects are still there, which is incredibly funny. They have updated the audio design in other areas, specifically with the voice actors. I mean, they have to, because Baby Waluigi has never existed before. This guy needs a voice for the very first time. But you can also hear Mario and Luigi and Wario and Waluigi have brand new sound effects because there's a brand new actor. And that was not the case in Mario Tennis Aces. In that game, they took Bowser and they gave him different legacy lines, which sometimes came from an entirely different actor. So at times Bowser sounds like this in Aces, and at other times he sounds like this. So this was not a surefire thing that they wouldn't just use Charles Martinet, and while I can't confirm that all of the game is brand new voice acted, it does seem like it is based on the clips we've heard so far. So while some of the audio design is very funny, I am still incredibly excited for this game. The level of polish above Aces is clear, especially in the visuals and menu design. We've got the entire roster back, which is already one of the best Mario Sports or Mario spin-off rosters, plus all the babies, plus Goomba, plus Wiggler, plus Nabbit, and then probably some DLC update characters as well. And the story mode looks really charming. The new mechanics are interesting as well. And it's also cool how some of Aces has survived. The golden mushroom appears to just basically be the Aces dive, which is nice. So you can try and go for a racket that gives you that kind of defensive, more tennis-focused abilities, or go for the ones which are gonna harm your opponent, which is definitely that Aces vibe, just evolved in a new way. Whether this game is going to be above Aces in my overall thoughts of how fun the series is, I do not know. But it definitely will surpass Aces when it comes to the actual package quality, which is something many people couldn't overlook with Aces, even though it's my favorite game in the series. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about Mario Tennis Fever. This game is out in like a month. Next month is packed, there's too many games. And we will catch you next time. Bye-bye!